The 1992 UK general election was held on Wednesday, the 15th of November. It was a politically realigned one. In the previous so-called coupon election of 1918, David Lloyd George's wartime coalition won a landslide victory. However, it was heavily dominated by the Conservatives, as they had won a majority in their own right in the election, it still remained part of the Lloyd George coalition. However, the coalition government faced seemingly never-ending problems. Even though Lloyd George led Britain in the Paris Peace Conference and, at home, initiated education and housing reforms, the economy contracted in 1920-1921, unemployment rose, and Ireland erupted into war. Spending cuts had to be initiated. Even worse, in 1922, Lloyd George was embroiled in a scandal regarding the sales of honours. In response, Conservative MPs met at a Carlton Club to discuss either to stay in the coalition or leave the coalition. Party leader Austen Chamberlain wanted to stay, but rising stars Stanley Baldwin and former party leader Andrew Bonar wanted to leave the coalition entirely. Baldwin even threatened Chamberlain that he would stand as an independent Conservative in the ensuing general election if the Conservative Party didn't leave the coalition. In the end, Ernest Prettyman, Member of Parliament for Chelmsford, moved a resolution that read, quote, that this meeting of Conservative members of the House of Commons declares its opinion that the Conservative Party, whilst willing to cooperate with coalition Liberals, fights the election as an independent party with its own leader and its own program. Unquote. The motion passed 187 to 87, and Conservatives left the Lloyd George coalition, which has been going on since the First World War. As a result, Austen Chamberlain resigned as Conservative Party leader. Seeing the unfolding situation, David Lloyd George resigned as Prime Minister. Andrew Bonar was invited to form the new government and formally succeeded David Lloyd George as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. A general election immediately ensued. This 1922 general election was unique, as ever since general elections were held on a single day since 1918, this has been one of the few general elections not to be held on a Thursday. The Conservative campaign focused on continuity. In Andrew Bonar's election address, he said, quote, the crying need of the nation at this moment is that we should have tranquility and stability both at home and abroad, so that a free scope should be given to the initiative and enterprise of our own citizens. For it is in that way, far more than by any action of the government, that we can hope to recover from the economic and social results of the war. Unquote. Continuing with, quote, with this in view, I think it is of the utmost importance that we should return as quickly as possible to the normal procedure which existed before the war. Unquote. The election address promised a moderate foreign policy that still supports the purpose of the League of Nations, ratifying the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and, quote, quiet and orderly development in India. Other than the Irish question, the election address was particularly vague on domestic policy. On the problem of agriculture, Andrew Bonar's election address stated, quote, There is one branch of industry I must specifically refer as a consequence of the war: agriculture. The greatest of our national industries is in a most serious condition and demands the practical sympathy of the government. It is not easy to specify the exact method by which that sympathy can be shown, but we shall immediately examine the whole problem afresh in the hope of making proposals which will assist the agricultural community to overcome the difficulties that now confront them. Unquote. The Labour Party, who received the second most votes, yet fourth in terms of seats in the 1918 general election, was, at this time, led by John Robert Clive. Their manifesto, titled Labour's Call to the People, promised nationalizations of the mines and railways, better housing, higher wages, improving workers' conditions, revision of the treaties agreed as a result of the aftermath of the First World War, opposition to indirect taxes, free scope for citizen enterprise, a new levy on financial capital, and fairer public expenditure burdens. It called for stability in a post-war world and positioned itself as a moderate yet socialist party, appealing to a broad working class base. One party we haven't talked enough in this election is the Liberal Party, which was divided between Herbert Henry Asquith, who had been the Liberal Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1908 until 1916, and Lloyd George himself. It was caused by Asquith's resignation as Prime Minister due to a collapse in the war effort. As a result, Lloyd George, who had been competing with Asquith for influence in the Liberal Party, replaced Asquith, which officially split the Liberals in half. Asquith headed the main Liberal Party, while Lloyd George headed the Coalition Liberal, later National Liberal, faction. The manifesto of Asquith's Liberal Party opened with the following paragraph, quote, "The complete collapse of the coalition government at length gives the electors an opportunity of pronouncing their verdict upon its performances and of deciding where to put their trust in the future. It must be remembered that both wings of the coalition are responsible for its misdeeds, and neither can escape its share of public condemnation." Unquote. The Asquith Liberal Party program had 10 points in which it stood for. 1. Peace and disarmament through the League of Nations. 2. Renegotiation and resettlement of war debt. 3. Reform of public expenditure economy and pursue non-interventionism. 4. Support worker protection, capital and labor cooperation, and industrial peace. 5. Repeal protectionist measures. 6. Defend existing essential social services. 7. Equality for both women and men. 8. Reform of the land system. 9. Reform the licensing system. 10. Reform the electoral system by introducing proportional representation. The National Liberals did not issue a separate manifesto of its own for this election, as they largely campaigned on Lloyd George's record as Prime Minister. It can be said that the campaign atmosphere in the 1922 general election was tense, fragmented, and disillusioned. Many voters were exhausted with the Lloyd George coalition, especially with the sales of honor scandal, which had prompted his collapse. Moreover, the continued liberal infighting did not help. This became a huge advantage for the Labour Party. And here are the results. The Conservative Party won, and Andrew Bonar remained as Prime Minister. The Conservatives won 344 seats, a net loss of 35. Their vote share remained stagnant at 38.5%. It was a convincing yet strong majority of 73 seats over all opposition parties. The Labour Party surged. They jumped from 57 seats in 1918 to 142 seats in this election, a net gain of 85. Their vote share also increased from 20.8% in 1918 to 29.7% in this election. Asquith's Liberals managed to recover, winning 62 seats, a net gain of 26 compared to the previous election. Their vote share also increased to 18.9%. The National Liberals lost 3/5 of their 1918 seats. They dropped from 127 seats to a mere 53 seats. Their vote share declined to 9.9%. This was the first time Labour officially surpassed the combined Liberal Party. Indeed, Labour was surging in electoral politics and gained support, yet still not enough to challenge the stronger Conservatives.